This is the story of the three wishes, and it comes from the Grimm brothers. The story is probably hundreds of years old. Nobody knows for sure because it's a folk tale, and it goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was a woodcutter, and this woodcutter took his axe and his cart, and he went into the woods to find a tree to cut down because that's what woodcutters do. He walked into the forest. He came to a place where he'd never been before, filled with big trees. And he saw one, it was an oak tree, and he thought, that looks like a good one to start with. So he took his axe and walked over. He was just getting ready to swing. But before he could, he heard a voice way up in the top of the tree. And the voice went like this. Please don't cut down my tree. The woodcutter looked up and said, what? Please don't cut down my tree, said the voice. It's my home. Well, it's what I do. I cut down trees. I'm sorry. Oh, please, please don't cut down my tree. Well, who are you? Said the woodcutter. And coming down the branches and landing on the lowest branch was a little squirrel. And the squirrel looked at the woodcutter and said, please don't cut down my tree. Cut down that maple over there. Nobody lives there. Well, okay, said the woodcutter. And that tree looked, well, as good as this one. So he picked up his axe and began walking toward the maple. But he hadn't gone far when the squirrel called after him, kind sir, thank you for sparing my tree. And now, because you've been so kind, I will give you 3 wishes. The woodcutter kind of shrugged and said, oh, okay. He wasn't the kind of man who believed in magic, although you'd think the talking squirrel would have given him a hint. Okay, he said to himself. And he walked. He found that big maple tree, pulled out his axe. He began to chop, and he chopped and chopped till that tree fell down, and he cut it and split it and loaded it into his cart. He dragged that wood back to his shack. Now, I almost forgot to tell you, but the woodcutter and his wife were very poor. They lived in just a little bitty shack. The woodcutter left the cart by the side of the shack and came in, walked through the door. He said, wife, I'm home. She said, yes, you are. He said, what are we having for dinner tonight? She said, we're having soup. He said, soup? Again? Well, didn't we have soup last night and the night before? In fact, I think we've had soup all week long. She said, that's right, we have. You see, we're poor. That's all we can afford is soup. He said, well, you know, I'm kind of sick of soup. I just wish for one night we could have a sausage. And suddenly, there on the plate was a sausage. They looked at the sausage. They looked at each other. She said, where did that come from? He said, I don't know. All I did was I said, I think I made a wish for the sausage, and that's where it came from, because you see, I was in the woods today, and when I didn't cut down a tree, a squirrel said I could have 3 wishes, and that must be one of my wishes. She said, what? You got 3 wishes, and you spent 1? You wasted 1 on a sausage? Well, I know, said the woodcutter. I didn't believe, I wasn't thinking. I just said, oh, you weren't thinking. You weren't thinking. Well, this is the problem. You don't think enough about things as it is, and see what happens? We could have had money. We could have had fine clothes or servants or a nice home, and we get a sausage. And so the woodcutter and his wife began to argue back and forth as they had in times past. Back and forth, until finally the woodcutter got so mad, he looked at the sausage, he looked at his wife and said, I wish the sausage was on your nose. And suddenly, there it was, stuck to her nose. She looked down, she looked at him, she said, what have you done? Look, what? She pulled at it, but it wouldn't come off, it was stuck. He pulled at it, it wouldn't come off, it was stuck. They got a knife, but they couldn't cut it off. It was stuck by magic. They couldn't get the sausage off her nose. She said, I can't go outside looking like this. What will the neighbors say? They looked at each other. They looked at the sausage. There's only one thing to do, he said. I think I need to use my last wish. Well, hurry up and do it, she said. Get this sausage off my nose. So the woodcutter looked at his wife, looked at the plate, looked at the sausage, and said, I wish this sausage was back on the plate. And there it was. Well, the woodcutter and his wife never got any more wishes. They never got rich, but at least for one night, they had a sausage to eat. And that is the story of the 3 wishes.